The following is a conversation with Stephan a former professional mixed martial arts fighter, now turned coach. But it's much more than just that. It's a conversation on what it takes to become great in your chosen field, from a man who knows exactly how to do that. For anybody who doesn't know, Stephan is a coach at CIT Performance Institute in South Africa, which is home to UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis. So it's fair to say this man knows a thing or two about fighting and also life. Enjoy. What do you think makes a great fighter?
Wow. There's not one thing. Well, there's a multitude of different things that makes a great fighter. Um, I feel like it all boils down to one thing at the end of the day is uh, how headstrong are you? Mental toughness. I don't believe in mental toughness in the terms of either you have it or you don't. I believe it's something that can be taught, and it's something that's within every person. You just need to be exposed to the right environment for that to come out and thrive. But above everything else, I mean, there's a long list of things that make a great fighter. But I've never met a great fighter with a weak mindset. That's something that has to be reiterated over and over again. Everything we do physically is just the expression of what's going on mentally. So strong mentality is without that, you're not going anywhere, irrelevant of how good your skill is.
Have you ever seen someone have a weak mindset and have that change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that's the biggest misconception in coaching. I don't believe in anything in life. You either have it or you don't. Specifically when it comes to killing instinct, and it's called killer instinct. Something you have. We're just not exposed to the environment for it to thrive, and in society nowadays it's almost frowned upon. So not only have I ever seen that mind shift happen, I've seen it multiple times, whether it be someone that's taken the new mindset into fighting, or someone who needed a mind shift in life, and just, fighting gave them the environment for that shift to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say that mental toughness, resilience, sort of what specifically does that look like for a fighter? What does that need to be for a fighter?
Only positive. It's really as simple as that. So I can go into the mental model. We have a genius who does the mental coaching. I work with him very closely. Dricus works with him very closely. Cam's working with him. It all comes down to one thing. It's what hormone is firing in your body. Is it a positive hormone or a negative hormone? Now, are you operating on the serotonin, dopamine, endorphin side of the spectrum, or are you operating on the cortisol and adrenaline side of the spectrum? And that comes from a mindset. When everything you do in fighting is about overcoming adversity. Now, as soon as you have a bad attitude about adversity, I promise you won't make it through that. Or if you do, the next adversity is going to crush you. So it's something that it's just positivity, making sure you embrace the adversity, man. Like, I see everything as problems, and how can I solve them? So I get excited in adversity because I can learn something and it can take me somewhere. And whether the result here is positive or negative is irrelevant to me. I'm excited for lessons learned and experience that I have now that I wouldn't have before. So that's what it looks like to me, is making sure that every decision you make every day, the old story of I got out of bed with the wrong foot, so I had a shit day. Yes, you're right, dude. Your day started wrong, you didn't correct it, and you had a shit day. That's how it works. Fighters you can't do that as a fighter. The average person who has an off day at work has an off day at work. As a fighter, you can get really hurt. You can't have an off day at work. And if you do have an off day at work, you can't see that and spiral into a negative mindset. You must be excited and say, listen, to have opportunity to rock up, not 100% of work, because there might be a day that I rock up to a fight and I'm not 100%. And it's literally just the context and the perspective you look at it. And if you want to make it to the top level of fighting, in my opinion, there's no space for any negativity.
And does that come from every aspect? Your coaches, your family, your friends, the people that you have around you? Do you think it's important to really work on that circle of people around you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, you're not going to achieve the impossible with a bunch of naysayers around you. You're a product of your environment. And if you're in a negative environment, I promise you, it doesn't matter who you are, it's going to rub off on you. And you have to, it's a difficult thing as a fighter, man, especially depending on where you come from in terms of background and personality. For some people, it's easier than others, but it's very difficult to be in a negative situation or in a situation where people have negative outlooks on life and distance yourself from it, right? Very few people can do that. So that's a very important thing. You got to keep positive people around you, and you got to keep negativity at a distance always. The reality is we're busy with 1% stuff. If you're going about, yeah, but everyone says, we don't do what everyone does. You just can't. So I think that's a very important aspect to manage in terms of people who you rub shoulders with must have the same mentality as you, or the mentality you would like to achieve. Otherwise, it's very difficult.
Do you think do you think it's possible to do it on your own, if that makes sense? So got a bit of a dry throat, sorry. Do you think it's possible to, say you're someone who's surrounded by negative people, do you think it's possible to still achieve greatness in whatever field on your own, or do you have to have the other people as well?
That's an interesting question. I think it is possible. 100% I think it is possible, but it all comes down to who are you in that situation? What's your personality? What's your background? I think you can. I think it takes a very, very special human being to be able to do that. It's not something that I've seen often. Every single situation that I've seen is, once the negativity becomes to a point where it doesn't make sense anymore, people push away the negativity who are ultra successful.
Mm.
I can't really think of a scenario in corporate's obviously a lot different. But I'm speaking about my background as a coach and as a fighter. I believe it can be done. I don't believe it's the easy way. You're gonna have to trial and error everything until you find a system that works, and that can take years. It can take decades, right? Where if you surround yourself with the people with the right mentality, it rubs off on you in months. You know what I mean?
Mm. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, absolutely. In different phases of my life, on both sides of the coin and both sides of the spectrum. The ultra positive, which is almost not that great because there's no accountability, all the way to the ultra negative that nobody's allowed to think outside of a box. So I've experienced both sides of the coin, and everything that I've learned and that I'm trying to teach guys as I go through as a coach is trial and errors that I've made and things I've learned over the last 2 decades. And to me, it's important, and I see it as my duty to make sure that the next generation, it doesn't take 2 decades, it takes a tenth of that or whatever it may be. Why would we want the next generation to struggle as much as we did, just like the previous generation didn't want us to struggle as much as they did? So I believe it's super important that we streamline this process to getting people to that point in the sport.
Mm. Do you think there's value in do you think there's value in both sides? Because you see someone who's given a really easy upbringing and a really easy environment, and it doesn't always create the hardest mindset. And for a fighter, do you think they need a little bit of that? Maybe early on in their life, a little bit of that? No?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
To me, it boils down. I mean, if you look at it in that sense, yes, there has to be adversity. But adversity in a situation of, let's call it privilege. We don't know that person, we don't know their story, and we don't know the adversities that they've had. Maybe it's even to the point where, in my situation or many situations that I know, it's not about the tough upbringing, for example, or that hardships in life. You have to understand that anyone who comes from a place of privilege chose this. That's a huge adversity by itself. That's a different kind of pressure. And I'm not taking anything away from people that, it's easier to see that tough mindset if they had physical adversities in terms of life struggles. Most of my life struggles happened because I decided to be a fighter.
Mm.
And at any point I could have pressed the ejecto-ceto button. Obviously not at any point, but there's a lot of guys that people don't see that and say, listen, the big adversity here is my whole family that is writing me off because I'm not pursuing the career that they set out for me, or not going down this path there's a lot of that in a lot of situations that is overlooked because the adversity story of upbringing or whatever overshadows that. But if it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. The emotions and the hormones are the same. So it's very difficult to compare my experience to or anybody's experience to someone else's. There's so much more to it. So I don't believe that it's about that. It's about being able to overcome any adversity, irrelevant of the pressures that comes with it, whether it's from the left or the right.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying there because I've never thought about it like that, but it's harder to choose hard when you have it easy versus when you've already had it hard. What's a little bit more?
Well, you know what I mean? Like if you're talking about, there was years ago, and it's an interview that stuck with me, where there was an interview with Ricarlison, the football player, where they said, "Are you nervous for the game?" And he said, "No, I'm nervous to walk the streets where I grew up. This is just a blessing. This is, I'm just living the dream here." Where if you take a guy who had every other opportunity in life, he's giving a lot up to do this. And that's a perspective that's usually not explored. Arman Cherukyan doesn't have to fight.
Mm.
He doesn't need the money. He's royalty. That's not why he does it. There's something else in him. There's something bigger inside of him and every other fighter that is, there's this goal and this drive. And it's different for every fighter. Why do you fight? And every fighter is going to have a different answer. But that's an important thing. And if you know the why, it's a lot easier to manage. Every athlete's not the same. They don't have the same motivations. But it doesn't mean my motivations is more valid than yours.
Is that something that you work on with the guys? Is why are you choosing to do this? Is that something that you ask them?
Dude, absolutely. How will I know if we deep in the trenches and this guy's about to give up on himself and I need to trigger that one thing? I need to be in his ear and say, listen, man, this is for your family. Or listen, man, this is for your legacy. Or the coach has to be in tune with that. for the athlete specifically,
Mm.
not as a fight philosophy or a team philosophy. That's a personal thing. And I believe a coach must be tuned into that to motivate the fighter accordingly.
Yeah. So say you get a say you get a new guy come into the gym and it's their first day. I've seen this happen loads, and to be honest, I was that guy at one point as well, where I came into the gym and I was like, oh, I want to be the next UFC champion. I want to be the next Conor McGregor. For me at the time, that was my thing. You know, I think everybody had that thing at some point. If you're
Yeah.
around my
I
age,
still want to be Conor McGregor, man.
yeah, yeah, who wouldn't exactly? But when you see that guy come in, I still see it. I'm sure you still see it. How do you react to that kind of guy?
When he has no experience, you have to understand he has no experience. So
Mm,
he doesn't understand what he's saying. He doesn't have, it's not his fault. It's not, it's, they just don't have enough perspective and context to what they are saying. It's an important thing to manage. I think there's a lot of places where they then say, oh, but today you're going to learn. And they throw you into the deep end. I don't think that's, sometimes that is necessary to deal with certain personalities but if someone walks in there and says they want to become the next UFC champion, that excites me,
mm.
whether they understand what they're saying or not. Means this guy's doing it for some, he's got something. Then you start slowly introducing them to the sport and teach them the depth of the sport. If it's a smart enough guy, they'll very quickly realize, oh wow, what I said and what's happening here, it's not the same as the way as what I imagined it. And then you see, are they going to stick around or are they not? And a lot of times I have conversations with guys like that. A couple of months down the line, they're like, dude, I don't want to be UFC champion anymore. Uh, I just don't, and that's also cool.
Mm.
It doesn't mean like, okay, but you're out of my team or you this or that. No, you're an enthusiast of the sport. I'll teach you as much as you want to know. You just have to understand that what you're saying is the back end of work to what you're saying. You don't understand, and that's okay. We'll show you slowly, but surely, without trying to chase you away from the sport, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think everybody takes different things from martial arts. So initially, I was that guy, and then I had an experience where I went to Tiger Muay Thai, and I realized the depth of what I was saying, like you're talking about, and my goals changed, and now I want to teach people and train and work on the business side of martial arts. And I think that's what I want to take from martial arts, and I think everybody takes different things from it, especially as you move through. When you first start, what you want to take from it might be different from when you're 5 years down the road. And the way I view it is that if you have a good coach, it's their job to facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And the title coach is something very important to me. It's a lot more than me teaching you how to fight. Fighting is I've seen fighting is a psychological thing, whether you acknowledge it or not.
Mm.
And what happens in the gym or in a fight, whatever, can pull through to the rest of your life. So I'm not too quick. I'm not too quick to say no. Let's teach someone a lesson because you don't understand. This is a very small aspect of this is my life. This is your escape, and you have to understand the difference.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you do a lot of work on the psychological side of things. You hear certain people, a very prominent example I can think of is Chael Sonnen always talks about. He kind of takes the piss a little bit out of people that say, oh, it's 99% mental and 1% physical. Obviously, that is a dramatized sort of equation there, but he always says it's 99% physical and 1% mental. What is your take on that? I'm not asking necessarily for a percentage, but how much do you work on the mental side with you yourself and your fighters?
So I work really hard on it, and it's not about, understand what he's saying in terms of you don't have to. A lot of people think about the mental side of fighting as this enlightenment, Zen martial. I don't see it like that at all. It's about just being positive, because then you're creative and open. If you're creative and open, you're good. If you're on the negative side of things, your judgment is clouded. You think a bit slower. There's a bit more emotion involved that you can take out. So to a certain extent, I understand what he says. It's a lot more physical than mental if you look at it like that. But you're not going to be able to perform physically if you're not in a mental good space. It's just, if you're not in a mental good space, the first emotion that comes up is doubt. Doubt's not good. Doubt clouds everything. The first emotion that comes out when you're on the positive side is excitement. So, it's a vastly different thing. I believe, a percentage is difficult to say, because in terms of the way we look at things, it's the physical is only expression of the mental. So in Charles Sonnen's experience, like, there's a lot of guys who you don't need to work with them mentally. You must just make sure they did all the sessions, because that's how they know, like, I did everything. Other guys give their opponents more credit in their head than they deserve. That's a bit different. So maybe for Charles Sonnen, it's 99% physical, because if he doesn't skip the sessions, he's not, he knows he did what it took. But at the end of the day, it's still going to boil down to a mentality that you walk in the cage with, irrelevant of the physical work you did.
Yeah. I think it depends on the person as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen some people that, if they think about it too much, they crumble, because they're overthinking it. And for them, that doesn't work. I'm somebody that has to really think about everything I do in life, even down to what I'm about to have for dinner, like, I have to really think about it. But some people, that can be too much. Have you ever experienced that yourself, or seen that with somebody?
Both, absolutely. I don't think I just do, because if I start thinking, it's a snowball effect, right? There's a lot of guys that I work with who comes from, they have completely different personalities to me. The way we learn is different. The way we, so it's going to work differently for them. For example, some people make notes after JITS class and some people don't. It's not saying one is right and one is wrong. So it's individualized approach to everything. There's no one size fits all when it comes to those type of things. I'm for a long time in my career, I was overthinking. And then one day I just decided, okay, I'm just going to stop thinking, and just all the pressure went away. And I just was like, wow, I'm just feeling so much better. But it's from looking at other people and saying, oh, that must be the recipe for success. Oh, that must be the recipe for success. That's the recipe for success for that individual. I'm a different individual I'm a different human being. I can't just copy paste someone else's system and think it's going to work for me.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that I've seen in terms of something that makes a great fighter, which is sort of the question that sparked this conversation so far, is someone who's willing to take a risk. So what is your relationship with risk? And talk to me about that.
That's a very interesting question. I think nothing worth doing is without risk. But risk also needs to be managed. Risk is a difficult thing. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, but also the bigger the risk. It's also something that needs to be managed to to a certain extent, so that you know where you're going, and that you understand the risks that are being taken, the repercussions of those risks. And you must be happy to, if you roll the dice and it doesn't fall on the number you called, to deal with it. I don't see it as risk then, if that makes sense. I'm happy to take, if we're talking in a physical situation, I'm not scared to go for an arm in guillotine and go to my back, because I have a plan to get out, if that makes sense. Right? So I'm happy to take the risk because I understand what I'm doing. I understand the risk I'm taking. I understand what happens if this doesn't go my way, and I've got a plan. Otherwise, risk doesn't make sense. Just rolling the dice to roll the dice and see what happens. The stakes are too big in our game.
Yeah. And I think that kind of loops back into thinking about things, because you can take blind risk, and
Absolutely.
that's stupid. If you haven't thought about the outcomes, like you were saying, it's not a wise decision. But if you've thought of, if I do this, then I've got this option, this option, this option. I think that's not only a good philosophy for martial arts, but it's a fantastic philosophy just in general to take towards life. And that's one of the beautiful things I think about martial arts, is that there's so many lessons you can take, and you can kind of make an analogy for martial arts, but also for life.
Yeah, man. Some people, it works so both ways, and I've seen it from both ways, where you know where their life experiences helps their martial arts, and their martial arts helps their life experiences. It's all the same, man. It's just smaller cycles of the same thing. And if you understand how to manage one of the cycles, you understand how to manage the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%. What do you think about the relationship with your students? How do you approach the relationship with your students?
So I've a personal relationship with each one of them. Then I also have a relationship as a group, where it's more of a senior junior relationship. But a relationship is a two-way street, and I learn as much from them as they learn from me. Yeah, pretty much, man. I think you have to be connected. Can't be disconnected to an athlete. You have to know what's going on. You have to know. That's the one side of it. And another side of it, my job at the end of the day, if you like it or not, is extreme accountability. So me and my athletes aren't best friends. We don't pry. We don't, you know, it's I have a role in your life. You have appointed me to do a certain role, and that is the role I'll play to the best of my abilities. And I'm happy to be the arsehole for you to learn a lesson, and you can go somewhere else and swear at me. That's fine. Lessons learned. And I take that approach a lot. I don't believe in telling people how it is. I believe to guide them to experience, because if I give you knowledge, it's secondhand knowledge. If I guide you to the answer, you figure it out and you own it, and you'll never do it differently.
You mentioned there about not being best friends with your athletes. Do you think that's an important barrier to maintain?
No, I don't think so. It's if everyone's on the same page, that and I've got a lot of friends that I coach. It's I coach a lot of younger guys. I'm a lot involved now with the professional guys. We have a lot more of a friendship, because I'm recently retired from the professional team, and I'm taking over a coaching role now there. As long as everyone's on the same page, that the relationship changes as soon as we step on the mat. then I don't see an issue with it at all. As long as the athlete and the coach understands that as soon as we step on this mat, the relationship is different. And as we step off and you can switch it back, then I think it's fine. I think where the lines get blurred, that's where issues come in.
Yeah. I think that when you step on the mats, as long as that switches, my opinion is that's fine. I have experienced that before where maybe I've let things sort of blur a little bit, and that's definitely impacted performance, training sessions, and then the relationships themselves. I think it's important to be able to do that. As long as you can do that, I don't see it as a problem. But yeah, it's a hard thing to do though, isn't it?
Not to me.
Yeah,
I understand. I'm here to make you better.
Mm.
I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care how you feel towards me. I don't care if you stay or go. This is my job. You appointed me in this time to do this job. I'm not going to do it off, whether you like it or not. Maybe I'm not the coach for you. Maybe, but I have to sleep at night and I don't let anything slide because I check myself at night when I brush my teeth and say, listen, man, did you give every single person you work with today the truth? Because if you did not, I don't mind. As I said, I don't mind being the arsehole for you to learn a lesson. I don't mind you being pissed off at me and not inviting me to your house over the weekend because I tuned you on Thursday. I don't care. If I say something, the way you feel about it is something between you and you, not something between me and you.
Yeah, that's a mentality that I'm going to adopt after having this conversation. Yeah, definitely.
It's a very healthy one, man. Like, as I said, my parents didn't care to discipline me how I felt about them. They wanted to teach me a lesson. I take the same approach to teaching. I don't care.
Mm.
I don't care where you're from, what you do, what business you have, who your parents are. You know, I don't care. Everyone's equal on my mat, and I'm there to teach you something. You know, for some people it's just fighting. For some people, you know, they need a bit more. They're there for different reasons. You know, I'm there to do a job. And as I said, what I say when I say something, and my intention is good, I don't care how you feel about it. That's something between you and you. It has nothing to do with me. I've never called a skinny person fat and they've been upset.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good mentality to take. I'm definitely going to take that mentality towards my coaching from now on, 100%. Yeah. So I've recently moved gyms. I'm now training at a different gym and coaching at a different gym to where I have been. And one of the things that I've noticed is I was getting a little bit, I wasn't leading by example at my old gym. Not all the time, but sometimes I was catching myself slipping a little bit. And I've moved gyms. And one of the things that's really stood out to me is that every coach there leads by example. How important do you think it is to lead by example as a coach?
Do you mind me asking what terms you're speaking about? Like physical, like training wise, like lifestyle wise, like
Well, the main one being training. So in terms of discipline with training and
so
doing the
so
push-ups, all of that.
no,
No?
no. I don't what do you mean? I'm not trying to be a world champion, you are. I don't see it the same way.
Mm.
I think it's good. I think every coach should train. How are you going to learn? If as soon as I believe in a wise man thinks he's a fool and a fool thinks he knows everything. I don't think I know anything. That's why I get up every morning and learn.
Mm.
But I don't think it's important. Why do I have to lead? Why do I have to lead by example in terms of training? You want to be the world champion. I'm telling you what to do to get there.
Mm.
Do it or don't. I don't have to train. I'm not. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's a
Yeah.
personal goal between you and you. I am the vehicle and the tool that's helping you get there. It's if I skip a session and you think it's okay to skip a session, you didn't want this as much as you thought you did.
Mm. Yeah. I think that comes in again to what we were talking about with the lines and the blurring of the lines of, no, I'm your coach and my training schedule is none of your concern.
We have different goals.
Yeah.
How do you expect us to do the same thing? If I want to be the best runner, the best sprinter in the world, and you want to be the best swimmer in the world, we're not going to do the same training.
Yeah. That's a
I want to be the best coach in the world. I'm not going to do what you do.
and I think also you can't be a great fighter and a great coach at the same time. That's my opinion. I think it's two different goals.
No,
I'm talking about great either. You can be a
I
fighter and a
agree.
coach at the same time, but I don't think you can be a great coach or a great fighter at the same time.
Greatness requires obsession. Can't be obsessed with two things at the same time, or you're going to do both of them off. And I agree with you 100%. I do things you don't. So I don't every day wake up and expect you to watch 50 fights today. I don't expect, that's my job. I've got a job, you've got a job. You do yours, I'll do mine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good perspective. Um, and it was a selfish question for me to ask, but hey, we're here for a conversation, you know.
Yeah, of course, man.
And I'm sure some people will take something away from that as well. But yeah. Have you ever experienced a period of your career or just your relationship with martial arts where you've taken a dip in your interest in martial arts or in your training, and how did you bring that back around? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, plenty. Plenty. Over the years, there's been a lot of, not as interested as one should be for the level of career that I was. Um, and it cost me as an athlete.
How
There
did
are
how,
certain situations. Say again.
how did it cost you?
I just believe if that was managed better, I think I would have done more in certain scenarios for certain periods of time. But on the flip side of it as well, life's about balance. It's I could I could walk out of fighting, and to this day I can walk out of fighting and be fine. I just can't. It doesn't matter how disinterested I feel at this point. Give me 2 days. So it's never been sustainable to me to be not interested. There's just something that you just see something that clicks somewhere, or it just pulls me back in. I know I'm in it forever. I can't get out. There's just too much to learn and too much I don't know. And too many people out there with these wealths of knowledge that I believe the day I wake up and think, okay, I know it all, I'll just retire. But I also know that day will never come around. So I know I'm married to this because of that. I think there's other athletes and other people that lose that interest and it just doesn't come back. That's okay. That never happened to me. I couldn't, even when I wasn't that interested in doing it physically, my mind was still running on, this and that. And how can I figure this out? And this guy moves like this, and this guy moves like my mind doesn't stop. The only time I don't think about fighting is when someone's speaking to me about something else.
Your students are very lucky. That's a that's what you want. That's what you want to hear from your coach.
No, man, I think I think some of them will tell you differently. I don't think there's yeah, I'm pretty obsessed with the sport, man. and and it gets a bit too much at sometimes for some people.
Yeah. What impact has that had on your relationships outside of martial arts?
Changed my life completely. Another thing though, it's not like this is a completely new obsession. It's been a long time. I was obsessed with the sport before even there was just underground events in South Africa. The UFC wasn't known. No, it's 2010. I'm still at school. We try, we got the Ultimate Fighter on some other DVD, and I got the BJ Penn versus Joe Daddy Stevenson fight. And I just, after that fight, and I had the privilege of meeting Joe Stevenson in Abu Dhabi, which was amazing to meet one of the guys who was like really, to me, who got me into the sport so long ago.
Mm.
Um, yeah, no, I've been obsessed with this for a really, really long time. Since I was at school, man. Since long before it was cool.
Yeah. It's what I find martial arts is one of those things, and I always refer to it as martial arts, whatever, wrestling, boxing, whatever it is. Any martial art that I've done is the same, is for me just so addicting. It's one of those things. And I think why it's addicting is because, as you said, you are never going to know everything about it ever. You can train every single day for as long as you can every single day, and you're never going to know everything. There's always going to be someone who is going to show you something, even if it's just a slight tweak, and it just changes your whole perspective on something. And it can be something so simple, and it often is.
Look, man, there's also another factor of it that people don't understand. There's so many people out there developing right now. Now, that's something I, myself, and Coach Neil Geyser, who's the grappling coach at Team CIT, that's a big thing to us. Is we trying to develop and stay ahead of the curve, and like it's there's so much out there, and the game changes every couple of years. The sport is too young for us to know everything, and for us to even try and think that we've figured out all the biomechanics of how to hurt someone else in the rule set that we have. It's not been around long enough.
Mm.
So that's the other factor of it is, I think some of the things that I'm going to end up learning hasn't been developed yet. They're busy developing now.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things, and that's something that I actively try and do. And I'm only very young into coaching, and I coach at a much lower level than you coach as well. But it's something that I actively try to do, is to every day just take a few minutes and do a bit of research on what is the newest thing. What is the new way of escaping this, or how do I attack from this position? Because when you're coaching, if you're allowing someone to go and fight, and you're the one who's giving them the knowledge, and you're still doing the things that were being taught 15, 20 years ago that have now got 100 responses to, and that thing's just so outdated that it's not even effective anymore, you're doing that person such a criminal disservice. It's one of
Yeah, I like the way you said that, a criminal disservice.
but it is.
It is, man.
It's so dangerous.
Man, I've seen people walk into a fight not ready for it, and it screws up their life, not their fighting career. And that reality check hits ego sometimes so hard that it changes your perspective on life. And like, it's a super important thing, man. And that's why I'm very vocal about the difference between a coach and a class giver. Just because you give a class does not make you a coach. And people are very quick to use the title coach, and it's a title that I hold very, very close to my heart, and I understand that. Whoa, listen, I understand the responsibilities of this role that I'm taking, and it's a lot of time people get a job and give a class and say, no, I coach at this gym. That no, you don't coach anyone. You give a class. Coaching is on a personal level. Coaching is on an emotional level. You have to understand that you step into a figurative parental role to a certain extent. And if there's certain issues that come to you, of certain things that's been, it doesn't matter if you want to deal with it or not. That's your responsibility. You sign up for this. Specifically when it comes to fight teams and fighters, and there's it's a super important responsibility that sometimes gets made a bit cheap by very commercial uh, uh, coaches or class givers.
Yeah. I think one of the things which impacts that is money. I think that
Yeah.
I've seen people trying to formulate the right way of saying it. I've seen people who are more concerned about more concerned about the money than they are the actual fighters that they're producing. And now I have very strong opinions on both sides, in that you need money to run the gym, because without that, there's no place for the fighters to train. So the financial and business side of it is incredibly important. However, I've seen sacrifices being made that shouldn't have been made. And I think that some people put the money first, sometimes in the wrong way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. A
Um,
lot.
yeah,
To me, it's not about the money in terms of that sense. Of course, you need to make money, but just because you also need to care. And that's the balance of it. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm giving a class to underprivileged kids who can't pay and I don't make any money, or if I'm in a class with, where I'm making a huge amount of money. My level of attention and care is the same. And that's where the difference comes into me. There's a lot of guys, and I've traveled a bit. I've been around where the mentality around that is a lot different to mine.
mm,
Where, I mean, I'll never give a class that's too big. That could, because I won't sleep tonight because I didn't get around to half the class. So, but that's a personal thing. And that's also comes down to me in pride in my job. Irrelevant of the financial gain. As I said, there must be balance. You need to make money to look after yourself, to look after to look after the people. But there has to be balance. You can't only care and not make money, but you can't only make money and not care. There has to be a yin and yang to that. And there's a lot of people who give class and train fighters, and to them, it's only a commercial relationship.
mm,
I'm not saying don't charge them and make good money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you signed up to be this person's coach. With that comes certain responsibilities. Irrelevant if they're paying you $5,000 a month or it's costing you $5,000 a month. You sign up for this.
yeah. And it goes back to that thing of, if you're sending someone into war, you better have prepared them the best you could have, because it is that criminal disservice thing that I mentioned, it all links back to that end product of when they step into the cage or the ring or whatever they're doing. Have you given them the right tools and given them everything you can? Have you studied the fighter's tape? Have you spent the extra sessions with them, sorting out some sprints for them or keeping them accountable, sending them messages, checking in? Have you done as much as you can as a coach to send them in there and for you to be confident that they're going to win? And I've seen, and I've been part of teams that have sent fighters in to fight, and we've all agreed that they're not ready.
I'll never ever do that.
Mm.
I've pulled guys. I've pulled guys 3, 4, 5 days out. I don't care. And then they never, maybe they pissed off and they never speak to me again. That's also okay. As I said, I saved you something you don't know. So, and that's okay to me. I'll never, ever, ever sit in a corner of a fighter that I don't know all the boxes are checked. I have sat in corners and then I've been wrong about the boxes being checked. Make no mistake. There's a difference. But I'll never ever sit in a corner or send someone to fight, or never, that I don't think, everything has been covered. Never. And that comes back down to, I have to look myself in the mirror tonight when I brush my teeth.
Yeah, yeah. I've got one final question, which I'm just going to end on. It could be quite a deep one. For you, what makes a great life?
I don't think it's that deep. I just think it's spending time doing something you enjoy. Not always going to be fun. It's not always not going to be fun, but I think it's life, fighting, everything has been made way too complicated, man. It's not that hard. And the mentality I have with fighting, you said, you stay on it and new positions to get out of this position and new techniques. We don't look at fighting like that at all. I'll walk into a jiu-jitsu gym and not understand a word anybody says. I'll still roll the guys because I don't look at fighting in terms of that. I look at it in terms of biomechanics. Your body looks like my body, and I know how mine works. That means I know how your works. So if I'm in a situation where I can manipulate your body to the way that my body doesn't want to go, obviously it's a lot deeper than that. But there's certain principles of, I need to move your hips. Your knee is an extension of your hip. So if I manipulate your knee, your hips turn. Your foot is an extension of your knee. So we look at things very simple. And that's the same way I look at life. It's not that deep, man. It's not that intense. You don't like a situation, change it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this comedian, it's Jimmy Carr.
Yeah. Big fan.
Yeah, he got asked a similar question to that one time on a podcast, and he said, "Just enjoy the passage of time." That's it.
Oh man, isn't that all we're actually doing?
That's it. Yeah, it really resonated with me when he said that.
I feel the same way. It's like that's the first thing I tell a fighter before we walk as well. And I say, before we walk to the cage, I say, what's the most important thing? The most important thing is having fun. Not keep your hands up or this or that. It's have fun. We're here for a good time. Don't make it shit for yourself, firstly. Secondly, in an amateur fight, it's 9 minutes and it's over. In a pro fight, it's 15 minutes and it's over. Like, if you're not here to have fun, do something that's fun to you.
Yeah,
And that's the main thing for me. It's do fun shit.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's been great to have you on. And where can you've got many more followers than I have, but where can everybody find you, man?
Yeah, so on Instagram and TikTok, it's Stephan underscore DLR. Stephan with a PH. Yeah, I've got a very inactive Twitter page as well, but mostly TikTok and Instagram.
Awesome, awesome, good stuff, man.